All right, welcome to the daily market recap for Tuesday, August 12th. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the action today of the indexes, liquid leaders, industry ETFs, then end the video with some long and short setups like we do every daily recap. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want my market takes throughout the trading day, along with a live stream at the open, you can sign up for the Discord using the link below. Jumping into it, great day for the market today. NASDAQ up a 1.3%, closing at a new all-time high, closed right at the high of the day as well. We had a nice little gap up on most indexes because CPI inflation numbers came in basically as expected, slightly lower for some sections, slightly higher than the others. But it's the market response that matters, and the market responded extremely well. S&P 500 up a 1.1% with a little gap up and a close at all-time highs. Really, the story was smaller cap stocks, smaller to medium cap stocks, things that are going to be most impacted by interest rates. And with inflation kind of staying steady, chances are we're going to get that interest rate cut coming up here. And that was reflected with the growth stocks of the Russell 2000 IWO with a big gap up, opened on the low of the day, closed on the high of the day. Not only that, but we closed above two resistance gaps that I've since closed out here. And if we go back to the video yesterday, I said we were bouncing between the 20-day moving average and the resistance gaps above. The direction that we break, we're just going to go with for the next trend. And we broke to the upside and saw great participation across the market. So overall, couldn't ask much more from the market today and the reaction to CPI. ARKK, gap up today, closed near the high of the day, still has this resistance gap. Would love to close that first before any pullback, but we don't always get what we want in the market. So just watching kind of the 10-day moving average in the gap zone as a potential spot for a higher low after this little rally. But ideally, we close the resistance gap before we do that. And then IBIT tracking Bitcoin. Great action today. Just nice and tight trading while the rest of the market was railing. Trading above all the key moving averages, not doing anything wrong. Next, we could jump to the liquid leaders. Eight of nine of them were up on the day, which just shows the broad market breadth, market participation that we got today. Two of the stocks I own, ALAB, thankfully, was up the most today, up 7%, acting extremely well. I bought it on the opening range break on the earnings gap up. Whenever you have a stock in the right theme, gapping up over their all-time highs, and it's an IPO stock, you have a chance to really make a difference in your account. And that's what we're seeing out of this stock right now. Have a nice little gap up. Watching for a pullback into that gap zone. The 5-day moving average is a potential add spot on that. Robinhood, largest position on the long side, not doing anything wrong today, up 0.4%, just consolidating, letting that 5-day moving average catch up while volume is tightening up as well. It's hard to imagine this would go down while the market's still going up. So we're just going to stay long in what I think is the market leader, I would say, along with NVIDIA, which next up, NVIDIA bounced at the 10-day moving average, closed back over the 5-day, up 0.6% today. Just a very clean uptrend. Haven't even tested the 20-day EMA in multiple months. Palantir, I would say, is probably the other leading stock. Like, if I had to pick three stocks in the market, it would be Palantir, NVIDIA, and Robinhood. Palantir up 2.3% today. Little undercut and rally of the 5-day moving average in the support gap, closing right near highs. This is getting a little stretched, but I think we could probably see a gap up, ignite bar. But if we get kind of multiple gap ups going here, then I would look for a potential blow off top. But we're not there yet. And when you go back and study kind of blow off tops, MSTR back in November of 2024, you tend to see multiple gap ups and multiple like extension bars or ignite bars. And Palantir hasn't done that yet. So if anything, like a quick pullback to the 5-day, I think is probably an ad spot for that final push up. But I'm probably not going to be like chasing this higher. Just be patient for that blow off move, but it's not hit there yet, and it's acting extremely well right now. DoorDash, awesome action, gap up. open on the low, close on the high, back through the 5 and the 10-day moving average after a little 3-day pullback post earnings. Now we can manage our risk against the gap low there if you're long. GEV, little gap up, close back over the 5-day moving average. It kind of just feels like the AI energy plays are like just consolidating, not doing anything wrong right now, but just running out of steam a little bit overall. NP, good action off the 5-day moving average, reclaimed the HVC on a closing basis. A couple more days trading tight, or a pullback into the 10-day moving average and gap zone around 68 would be a key spot to watch. Roblox, this is one of the weaker names on the list, and that just shows you how strong the market is right now because yeah, we closed under the 5-day moving average, but today was on light volume. It's still like if you just kind of hold your finger over the one earnings candle day that gapped up and sold off, it looks like one of the most beautiful charts in the market. Does feel a little bit heavy here as it's not running with the rest of the growth stocks or the rest of the smaller cap names. So potentially going to replace this with Meta, which had an awesome day today, gap up, reclaimed the HVC, rallied into the close, ending today up 3.2%. So we'll keep Meta on the sidelines, ready to add it to the leaders list once any of these start to falter. And then finally, we have Reddit up another 1.4% today, closing into the last resistance gap before highs. Awesome response post earnings, just basically being accumulated every single day here. Definitely a name that if the market does pull back is something that I would want to keep an eye out for. Next, we'll jump to the industry ETFs, and I think this is the first time that at least I've noticed this, but every single ETF was higher today. Every single one was green. Awesome market participation. ITB led the way today. This is the home builders ETF up 3.2%. Very, very tiny gap up today, but for the most part, just railing throughout the day, closing near the high of the day and into a previous resistance gap here. I pointed this out before, but I'll point it out again. Look at the skyscrapers of blue volume, the accumulation as this bottomed. It was one of the weakest groups in the market to did not rally at all of May, June, started getting going at the end of June, but really the beginning of July. And now interest rates more than likely are going to be coming down. This group has been on fire and is being accumulated pretty heavily. That is obvious here. Not going to go through every single one of these. A couple that I wanted to cover though, SMH semiconductor ETF. We were a little concerned with the reversal at the resistance gap, which I can draw here. We had this little resistance gap that we uppercut and failed yesterday. Today, no problem there. We got through it, closed above and at all-time highs. Great sign for the overall market whenever semiconductors are participating, and semis are above their 20-day moving average, acting well. Still, probably the best opportunity that I see for kind of like a longer term position trade instead of just quick swing trades as the market runs hot is in China. KWEB is the Chinese Internet ETF, and we've covered this at length. But we had a breakout retest, shakeout on Friday, August 1st, then rally back through the key moving averages, slight pullback, and then we got going today with a gap up over the 20-day moving average and closed back through all the key moving averages. I did start a position added to a position in one account and started it in another today, trying to build my Chinese exposure up. But KWEB acting great. Biotech, XBI. I also started a position in LABU, but exposure in the biotech ETF because position trading wise, I think this is a really good spot to manage risk against. We've got a pullback into the 50-day moving average while we got rejected at the 200-day. Now, with interest rates hopefully coming down, we got a nice little wedge pop through the 3-day pivot and the 5, the 10, the 20-day moving average. So that was the buy point, and I'm just managing my risk versus yesterday's low on that. Cybersecurity, good reversal today on volume. Had been selling off, now back through the 5 and the 10-day moving average. Nuclear ETF NLR holding the 20-day moving average and support gap, not doing anything wrong there. Even though SMR is really not acting well, the rest of the group is holding up okay. And then IGV, after a ugly close yesterday, we had a quick undercut of yesterday's low, rally back through the 50-day moving average. And if we can get a push through the 10 and the 20-day moving averages, this gets another group back on the right side of the 20-day. And it looks like we can have another run higher. ITA, this has been one of the leading themes in the market for basically off the bottom. First to really get back into highs, and now we're just consolidating between the resistance gap and the 20-day moving average. Very similar to IWO, like I said in yesterday's video. So we'll see which direction that we actually break through. If it's to the upside, I'm assuming ITA, the defense and aerospace ETF, can continue to the upside. If it breaks to the downside, maybe it needs more time to consolidate, probably to the 50-day moving average. But really nice, clean areas to manage risk against. Uh, I think, yeah, we can just jump to the long setups now. Tesla didn't quite. I was looking for this today to get through to the 5-day moving average. We didn't quite get there. So just have this on the radar. Got alerts set for the support gap in this area for a higher low pullback. Going to be patient with that and not try to buy it extended up here. But I tested the 5-day moving average is buyable versus that 200-day. Meta, this was on the watch list coming into the day. It was buyable through the HVC. That's how we set it up in yesterday's video. Now just a recheck into that HVC area is buyable versus the 10-day moving average if you missed the entry today. SoFi, great extension up. Now we're waiting for a pullback into today's gap zone into the 10-day moving average right around 2240. Don't need to buy it extended, would rather buy it on a pullback. But this is a stock that got a little funky around earnings, but you could see these long lower wicks. And this is why I don't close out the gap zones on intraday action, because on a closing basis, when institutions can actually make their moves at the beginning of the day when there's liquidity and at the end of the day when there's liquidity, they were supporting the price through this $21.20 area multiple times, kind of wicking into the 20-day moving average and support gap. Finally, our last touch was on August 6th, where to the cent, we undercut the support gap, got to the 20-day moving average. That was an A plus buy point. Now that we're getting a little extended here, we're waiting for a pullback, which to me wouldn't be an A plus buy point, but somewhere that we can manage risk against versus the 10-day moving average. Alibaba, going back to the Chinese theme, I think this is, I mean, this is a liquid name in that group. KWEB chart looks very similar to Baba because Baba is such a heavy component of it, but really zooming out, like beautiful, beautiful base here, multiple years of trading sideways. Now we're starting to get nice and tight here with the 20-day moving average, the 50-day curling back up. Today was buyable. Just through today's high is also buyable. Stop would be the 20-day moving average. Um, we'll jump to FUTU because that's another Chinese name. Uppercut the resistance gap. So my guess is this might need a pullback into a higher low. So watching that 20-day moving average, that 155-ish area as a potential higher low in the pullback. And then TME, just awesome reaction on earnings. This is the leader in China. If I had to pick one, previous earnings, gap up and go, little consolidation, and then rallied. This time, gap up and go. Now, if we can get some consolidation, this will be on a long watch list later in the week. But I want this to consolidate a little bit. But if the best stock in China is gapping up on earnings and acting well, I think the theme is probably ready to get going as well. ALAB kind of alluded to this earlier, watching for that 5-day moving average and gap zone test at 179. Don't need to rush an ad spot on there because we are quite extended from the 50-day moving average, even though it's an IPO making new highs. We'll wait for a pullback on that. Don't want to buy it even more extended. CLS made a new closing highs today. This is the stock that I think has gone up the most and is one of those names that I just have not made money on historically. But it's on the list because it does act super well. I just have been unfortunate when trading it. Watching for a pullback into that 10-day moving average, the $200 round number, and the gap up zone as a potential entry versus this secondary support gap at 195. We are in a bull market and a speculative bull market at that. So taking a look at BULL as a performance boosting trade. Inside day today on very light volume, just looking for a breakthrough today's high, stop at today's low. A name that has made a monster move from $9 up to like 78, then immediately sold off, went through some consolidation. Now we're getting a little bit more tight with those moving averages underneath us. More so a performance booster. I don't see Webull as being like a market leader, but in this market that shows that some speculative names can make some massive moves, this is one that we actually have a tight quality setup to trade. RBRK, I think this has annoyed enough people now to put it on the watch list. And going back to that IGV chart, the semiconductor ETF, that we lost the 50-day, undercut that today, and then started to rally again. If that group can wedge pop through the 5, the 10, the 20-day moving average, this is a name that led off the bottom, doubled off the bottom, put in a flag, started to get going right when software names started to pull back. And we got the resistance gap there, resistance gap here. But now we've got the 50-day kind of curling over, which is one of my favorite setups. It's the higher low 50 pop, where the first test of the 50-day, not always the best buy point. Then as you pull back, put in a higher low, and you have the 50-day kind of flattening out just over your price. When that aligns with a couple of daily highs, that is a nice entry versus the low of the previous day. So watching this through $89, and then stop would be today's low. AEO, another speculative play. It's that Sydney Sweeney trade, whatever you want to call it. Gapped up on that news. Started to trade super, I would say not super tight, but we're consolidating into that 10-day moving average. Nice tight close versus the open. This is one, if we get a gap up, opening range break is viable for kind of a um, speculation type play. And in a euphoric market, something that can actually get going. And then VSAT, really tight action after their earnings. Love how this is trading. Would rather have this like gone up one more day post earnings and then consolidate, but I mean, it did run 30% on earnings, so can't be too picky at this point. About 4 trading days, really tight. Another one or two, letting that 5-day moving average catch up would be ideal here, but just looking for a breakthrough today's high as a potential entry there. And then very similar setup with IRTC, on the thinner side compared to the rest of the stocks that made the list. $72 million average dollar volume. Gapped up on earnings, kind of went sideways a little bit. 2 pullback days to the 5-day moving average. Little shakeout to the gap zone. Tight trading today. So through today's high, stop at today's low for IRTC. Then on the short side, we've got HIMS that we'll start with. Another gap down and sell off today. Super, super weak while the rest of the market is very strong. So now we'll just wait for a mini rally, uppercut and fail of $50. The gap zone and the 5-day moving average would be a really nice spot to manage risk against. If it keeps going, a little rally to the 50-day would be, I would say, probably even better as the market extends to the upside. But I'll be watching the $50 range as a potential short there. Amazon, currently my largest position, and it's short. Good action today. It in the morning we had a little dip in the market, and Amazon was quick to sell off in that weakness. Bounced just under the 50-day moving average, rallied back through that area, closed the day basically flat while the market ripped higher, and that just shows you the relative weakness there. A quick uppercut and fail, so like take out today's high, then fall below it. That would be the entry if you're not short already versus the high on August 7th as your stop. SBET, this has already made a insane move from $3 to 120, fell apart, had another insane move from $9 up to $40 into the resistance gap. fell, and now we have a higher low and another lower high. This was on the watch list a couple days ago. Uppercut and failed the resistance gap perfectly. Now let's see if we could follow through to the downside. And we did this on the highest volume ever. So as speculation is increasing, we're getting lower high, lower high, lower high. Not usually a good sign for stocks like that. So follow through to the downside would be a add spot to the short or a new short versus today's high as your stop. MMYT uppercut the 50-day moving average, and this is one of those names along with like SFM that you had your monster stage 2 uptrend, your monster stage 3 top phase. Now we're looking for the stage 4 decline. And the fact that this is like not even close to highs while the market is at highs, the fact that it's under the 200-day moving average, which is sloping down, is not a good sign for the stock at all if you're trying to trade it long. But thankfully, it's on our short watch list. So we had the uppercut of the 50-day. Another rally to that area to get our stop as tight as possible would be ideal since it is like a slower moving name overall. Um, but any little rally, then loss of VWAP, it would be a short versus today's high. BMNR, using SBET as kind of the comparison to get the short. Another little uppercut and fail of the resistance gap today. So let me bring up the SBET chart. You had your insane move, then you had your collapse, and then you rallied all the way back up into a resistance gap. And for a couple days, you traded right around it. And then day 3 was when it really started to fall apart and fell from $36 down to 16, so about a 50% decline. BMNR now. This is day 2, right at that resistance gap without closing over it. So there's obvious sellers at this point. We saw the highest volume ever yesterday, just like we saw with SBET's lower high into the resistance gap. And now, even on a super strong market, we were only up 5.5%, couldn't close over the resistance gap. This is one where I would want to play it on like a gap down and then a loss, like gap down, mini rally, loss of VWAP as the short to add to the short, and then try to play this for a move lower. I still have my shares short, and stop would be the high of yesterday for my position. SLDP, think this was on the watch list yesterday on the short side. Big run up, sold off, lost the 20-day, gapped up on earnings and had a nice push into highs, but then started stalling out before actually making new highs, which is not a great sign when you see this kind of like U pattern and then um, start to stall a little bit. That is a warning sign for speculative stocks when they go from 75 cents to $5. So now we're just looking for a loss of the 5-day moving average, and today's low is a short. The stop would be the high of the day. VVPR, I'm a little less confident in this. We did have the uppercut in the fail of the resistance gap today on some good volume as it was extended for 1, 2, 3 days. Kind of similar to SBET and BMNR. If we can get a lower high rally into this, so we don't take out today's high, but just a lower rally into the resistance gap, then a loss of the VWAP, that would be my short versus today's high on this name. And then ZEPP getting extended, would really want to see one more bar, like a gap up in like crazy ignite bar, before I would try to short it with like large size and really play this for an account like performance booster. A gap up tomorrow in loss of VWAP could do it, but it's really not doing anything wrong. Volume still accumulating on the right path. So that's why like with this, it's on my radar to short. I would really love like a 25% up day and then another gap up to really kind of set this up on the short side. Just like with NEGG, it's another name that I've taken a couple paper cuts trying to short. This looks great. Like this looks like a great A plus like setup to the long side if we could take out today's high. So another ignite bar and then a gap up that could like uppercut and fail of $100. I think would be a good short on this. But the way this acts, the way this surfs the 5-day moving average and has the right volume profile, until we close under the 5-day moving average, I don't want to argue with this and try to hold shares overnight because It doesn't give you anywhere to get out. So NEGG and ZEPP would love for like another gap up ignite bar and then a gap up on what would that be on Thursday as a potential short. So that is the market recap for Tuesday, August 12th. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want my market commentary throughout the day, along with a live stream at the market open, you can sign up for the Discord below. Have a great night, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video.